show where we dive into everything that fascinates us about entertainment and the media industry. I'm Nadia, and joining me is my co host Liliana.
Hi, everyone.
And today we will be looking at Spider Man properties of the past and speculating about what is shaping up to be the biggest film of the year, Spider Man No Way Home. This is your official spoiler warning for any Spider Man media, including films like Venom Let There Be Carnage and Spider Man Into the Spider Verse. So, do you know like the complicated history of the rights to the Spider Man character? Like why we've had three different live action Spider Man in the past 20 years?
No, I know it's been complicated, but I don't know the specific details.
Yeah, well, like obviously the character originated at Marvel Comics, created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko back in the '60s. But in terms of the movies before the MCU was like this big, Marvel had to sell the rights to a lot of their characters to other studios. Like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four were over at Fox. They made some movies. I mean, they made a bunch of movies before Disney acquired them. Some were good, some were not very good.
Hmm.
And I think that the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk movie was like co-produced with Universal, and I know the Hulk rights are still a little tied up, which is why we haven't seen another Hulk movie. Just like team ups with Thor Ragnarok. Sony had the rights to Spider-Man and all those adjacent characters. So Sony had made 5 live-action Spider-Man films, 3 starring Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, and James Franco, directed by Sam Raimi, also upcoming director of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but we'll talk more about that later. And 2 starring Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, directed by Mark Webb. But after Garfield's second outing in 2014 with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was pretty poorly received by critics and audiences and ended up grossing about 50 million less than The Amazing Spider-Man. Sony and Marvel announced a partnership that allowed Spider-Man to appear in Captain America Civil War in 2016, and which led to this series of films starring Tom Holland as Spider-Man, as well as Holland appearing in films like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War.
So I remember when it was announced that Spider Man was finally entering the MCU. It was something that fans had been asking for and speculating about for what felt like ages, including myself. And just saying, I think Tom Holland is truly the perfect person for the role. He's so near and dear to my heart, and I hope Maguire and Garfield fans don't come after me for this. But I think he's the most adorable Peter Parker who's ever graced the screen. And he really just embodies everything about Spider Man. How many MCU movies has he been in by now?
He's literally played Spider-Man 5 times in the Marvel films since his first appearance, which is kind of crazy. It was about 5 years ago.
No way.
He's been like cranking out these Spider-Man appearances.
He must
So
wake up already in the spider suit. Like he's just ready to go.
people say like Tom Holland was literally born to play Spider-Man, and I'm like, yeah, that's totally true.
Agree.
And also like Spider-Man's kind of an age related role to some extent.
Such a
So
good point.
the older that he got, the further and further would look like he was a teenager, which was something that I think they were trying to maintain in those films by casting someone who's like 19 at the time when he first came. So it became pretty obvious that this character and the world that they built around him was going to be like a huge moneymaker for both the studios. And so, of course, the deal fell apart naturally. Uh, so, this snippet about the deal is from a Hollywood Reporter article. The Sony Marvel deal fell apart not too long after the release of Far From Home, spilling into the public arena and causing much hand wringing among Spider Man fans. Holland even called then Disney CEO Bob Iger to ask him to work something out with Sony. In September 2019, Sony and Marvel announced that they had reached a new deal that would allow Holland to complete his trilogy and also appear in one more MCU film. So, yeah, it ended up getting solved eventually, thankfully. Like, can you even imagine how the MCU films would have narratively taken off without Tom Holland? Like, that sounds crazy. Oh, and also there's this hilarious edit of Jeff Goldblum reacting to the news of Tom Holland potentially leaving the MCU. I'll throw it in the description. But he embodies the feelings that I think most people had at that point, which is like, yeah, business, business. Just tell me when the next Spider-Man movie's coming out.
Seriously, like, yeah, I get it. The goal is to make as much money as possible from this one iconic character, and it can take time and business deals to get there, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, I don't care. I only start paying attention either once they announce another movie or, there's a total stall in production that has all the media outlets, outraged or shocked or whatever. So guess you can call me an untrue fan. Um,
No.
but I don't know. I remember previously I felt that I disliked Sony because I felt that they were gatekeeping the character, though I think they've been a lot more fair about it recently.
Yeah, I think when they were seeing all the success of the MCU, they really saw like an opportunity for some more complex storytelling, which is I think what we're seeing in this upcoming film. But yeah, they still own the rights to all the adjacent Spider-Man characters too. Like so all the villains, all the side characters. So they dug into that a little bit more, especially on the villain side. In 2018, they released the first Tom Hardy Venom movie, and this year they released its sequel with Woody Harrelson's Carnage appearing on the big screen for the first time. In Venom 2's post-credit scene, Venom gets transported to what we are led to believe is the MCU because of a news report on the TV showing J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson exposing Tom Holland's Peter Parker as Spider-Man, like we saw at the end of Spider-Man Far From
Oh,
Home.
wow.
So that seems to suggest not only that Hardy will be in No Way Home, but also potentially that Tom Holland may make an appearance in the next Venom film, which would be crazy.
That might actually get me to watch them.
Okay, those movies are fun. That's it. In 2018, they also released one of my all-time favorite films period. And hot take, but also not a hot take because I think a lot of people agree with this. The best Spider-Man story we've seen on screen, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which introduces Miles Morales, who in the comics is an alternate universe Spider-Man who ends up taking the mantle after Peter Parker's death in his universe. There's some comic shenanigans also, and he ends up becoming Marvel Comics' mainline Spider Man character, but that's very complicated.
Yeah, I actually want to take a moment to talk, well, gush about Miles Morales. So he's the first BIPOC Spider Man to get his own movie, being of African American and Puerto Rican descent. Shout out to my fellow Puerto Ricans. I'm also Puerto Rican. And the story was just incredible to me. So the visuals were stunning. It did a great job at capturing familial relationships. And it was deeply affecting just in the emotionality of it all the way throughout. So I think they did a great job of showing the complexity of his experience as both an emerging Spider Man, but also an Afro Latin teenager. So, though some people will disagree, because I've seen a lot of different discourse on the subject, I really like that it was an animated film. It felt like a breath of fresh air, meant to revive a well known storyline, and a great decision to help showcase the unique character and the multiverse at large. Like, anytime I think of this film, I just think of all the incredible colors that we saw, all the incredible music as well, which is not even something we're talking about here, but like shout out, that was a great soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
So as of today, the sequel is scheduled to be released on October 7th, 2022. And the teaser they released this month looks so good and so interesting. I can't stand it. So I'll be at the theater as soon as it comes out, ready with popcorn in hand and everything. Maybe a Puerto Rican flag, who knows?
That'd be dope. This film won Best Animated Feature at the Oscars that year that it came out, and I think it beat out some Pixar something. I don't know, but that's pretty huge. A lot of people were saying back then that they thought Into the Spider Verse should have been nominated for Best Picture, and I totally agree with that. That movie is fantastic. I own this movie, like that's how good it is. I watch it whenever I want because it's so entertaining and so fun.
Yeah, and it's definitely like, at least for me, like a new classic. Like this is gonna be a
True.
movie when I'm like, I have kids or like my nieces and nephews, I sit them down and I'm like, do you know anything about Miles Morales? You think you know Spider-Man? You know nothing, you
Spider-Man's
know?
so light. Not all the time, at least. Also, this movie is like universally beloved. I think it's a
Hmm.
crowd pleaser. I've shown this movie to a number of people who I think would never ever want to watch a superhero movie, let alone an animated one, and they love it because they have heard nothing but good things about it, and so they wanted to watch it. And then I show it to them, and they're like, "This is amazing." I can't wait for the Spider Verse sequels. that are coming. The first one was like
Woohoo.
one of the absolute best film going experiences I've ever had. I mean, I saw multiple times in theaters, but there are also some more, even more Spider-Man adjacent films on the horizon, like the long delayed Jared Leto Morbius, the Living Vampire film, which is supposed to come out next year. And Michael Keaton's Vulture seems like he's going to be making an appearance based on the trailer, which is interesting. And apparently, there's also a Craven the Hunter film, which is just another popular Spider-Man villain from the comics. And apparently, it's starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, which is going to be interesting
Wait.
since he's already played Quicksilver. So I wonder if it'll be an interesting little variant thing that they'll pull out of there. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a truncated version of the rights history. Spider-Man is just a massively popular character, so it makes sense why the rights would be so contentious for so long.
I mean, like we've said before, and I'll echo again, it's all down to the money, down to the dollars and cents. Like, they're like, how much money can we pull from this one character without getting, the general audience in the United States fatigued by this character? And
Mm-hmm.
I would say that I felt super fatigued by Spider Man when the Andrew Garfield movies came out. I was like, oh my God, for what? Like, you just ended them. Why are you doing this again? And I think they're trying to fix that this time around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but anyway, so do you know what's coming next for Tom Holland's Spider-Man after this?
No, I have heard a little bit, but tell me.
So apparently, it's been confirmed by Tom Holland that he'll be the face of yet another Spider-Man trilogy, but this time around, Peter Parker is headed to college. They touched a bit on this part of Spidey's backstory in the second Maguire film, but I'm really excited for them to revisit it because college is just such a great setting for shenanigans and just general buffoonery. And now that everyone knows who Peter Parker is, unless he's somehow transported into another universe where no one knows his name, it'll be far more complex than its predecessors. Because this new trilogy has to be more than him figuring out the Spider-Man he wants to be. That was what the Homecoming trilogy was all about. So I imagine that they'll be able to get into the nitty gritty character details and life events that have been glossed over in favor of a million separate but similar origin stories. But bringing it back to Spider Man No Way Home, did you see a clip from the fan event where Tom Holland talks over a trailer of the film? It looks like it's going to be epic, like Captain America Civil War or Avengers Endgame level epic.
Also, interesting. The college that he goes to is it's in New York City. It's called Empire State University. It doesn't exist.
Oh, I was here thinking like, oh my God, where is Empire State University?
Yeah, a fictional university. I'm pretty sure that's where he goes in the comics. There is a Spider-Man PS4 game. The college is a landmark in the New York City of that video game. So very interested to see what happens there. Like, also, we haven't even talked about the video games. Like, dude, there's so many Spider-Man things out. Like, there's just so many.
Too many to talk about, like for years.
So yeah, I saw clips from that fan event where he announced the college thing on YouTube. That event, they also did a villains panel with Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, and Jamie Foxx. It was kind of like weirdly awkward though. Like it seemed like they'd been asked certain questions and pre-recorded their answers, but like the hosts of the event were asking them and playing their answers back as if it were a live interview. But it just did not feel congruous at all.
That is so weird.
Yeah,
What?
I don't know. Maybe that happens more than I realized, but it was really awkward. But the fact that they did a villains panel was super interesting because I think it's some of the first insights that we've gotten into why these actors decided to return to these characters. You know, for like Willem Dafoe, it's been 20 years since Spider Man. And they all talk about how the pitch was really great and how they all trusted Amy Pascal, who is the Sony Spider Man producer, which is so interesting because Kevin Feige was literally a producer on some of those Raimi films and they just didn't mention him at all. But, you know, even though Fox's character is like from, let's say, a less beloved film.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, he's still representative of now how you can take something from those not as good Spider-Man movies and rework it a little bit and still get something far more successful because like Jamie Foxx is not the problem. It was the character that was the problem and the script that was the problem. Jamie Foxx is
Oh
a
yeah.
hugely talented actor. I mean, and like Sandman's coming back too. Similar kind of story. I mean, different in a sense that like Jamie Foxx's Electro was like not good, as a character. Sandman was a very successful character to me in Spider-Man 3.
I
Very,
agree
very
completely.
excited to see Sandman coming back. I wonder what context that's going to be around. We haven't seen any images. It seems probable that Thomas Hayden Church, who played him in the original films, is coming back, but that character was one of the best parts of that movie. So it's really cool that they're creating this synthesis of elements that worked in the previous films or reworked or updated elements that didn't work, and their MCU secret formula and overall aesthetic that we've been seeing with Tom Holland.
I completely agree. And just to add to your point, I think that what Marvel and more specifically Disney do best is weave together storylines without wasting any potential. And I know we can definitely argue over that statement, but overall, I stand by it. So, as a culture, after seeing so many Spider Man films within a short span of time, the main question everyone wanted to know is why? Like, what was the point of all of this? So, while the character rights are the real reason why, I think Marvel is finally going to answer that question with this new movie. Like, instead of answering it with, oh, the reason why we had so many films is because we suck as business people, they're going to be like, it was the plan the whole time, and you didn't even see it coming. Ha ha. When
Kevin
basically they're just,
Feige's 10 steps ahead of everyone.
yeah,
Like,
right. When basically he's just reacting. And low key, I'm like, how much time do you spend on Twitter just reading fan theories? Because I swear some of these theories could make it to the big screen and have made it to the big screen.
oh, 100%. Yeah, Kevin Feige, I think his background is just so well suited for these films because he's a big comic book dude, and he's produced several. He worked on a lot of the Spider-Man movies. He worked on some of the X-Men movies. He has experience and knows what worked and what didn't, and he's applied that really well into this series. I wonder how many more years he'll keep doing this, but like it'll be kind of crazy to see like a future where he hands it off to another producer or something. There's probably already a protege, being prepped for this.
Oh, yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah,
But can
or
you also just imagine being the creative mind kind of responsible for so many of these huge
dude,
decisions?
literally for the most successful franchise in human history. Like, I have
Like,
to say, yeah.
I was having this conversation with a friend recently, but I was like, Feige literally changed the way storytelling works,
Yeah.
just in a film media, but just in general. And they were like, "You're giving him too much credit, Liliana." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "You do the job then." Like it just seems like so insurmountable to me. Like I could not do it, but
Yeah.
I didn't even know that he'd worked previously on films. I mean, until we started recording this conversation on like Spider-Man films.
Hmm.
But switching gears a little bit, as I'm sure everyone here has heard at this point, there's heavy speculation that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are going to be featured in the film as Spider-Mans from alternate dimensions within the multiverse. So I think this small act alone will give us a sense of closure with the uncompleted storylines. Or it might just breathe, as I said before, breathe fresh life into like an old character that we already know. But at this point, if they're not in the film, I will be so disappointed. I might genuinely start crying at the theater.
You imagine the movie ends and everyone's just crying, but not because the movie was sad.
Or
um,
imagine it's just in a post-credit scene and like it's just launching the next trilogy and you're just
yeah,
like,
that
"Oh
suck.
my god, are you kidding?" Like I was rewatching the Tobey Maguire films as a lead up to recording this discussion, and I don't know, it struck my heart chords in such a specific way. Like I
Those
really miss
films are
those
great.
movies.
Yeah, I like all three of those. Like, I mean, yeah.
Especially the third one.
The third one has its like good stuff. Like the scene where he first puts on, I guess, the black suit and he's like looking at himself in the reflection and the score is just so good. It's so good. That's something I think we've genuinely lost in these newer MCU films is like just really punchy scores.
Yeah.
And I think Shang-Chi was really good. Had a really, really great score. The
Hmm.
theme of when he gets the rings and at the end of the film is amazing. The original three Spider-Man films have probably one of the best scorers that I've ever heard. Like, period.
Wow,
Um,
I actually didn't even think about that, but you're
yeah,
so right. And now it's like weird to think of like Tom Holland as the face of like the new Spider-Man. What is his soundtrack? What are the soundtrack to those movies like? Like I don't even remember. I can't
no.
name one
Yeah,
one
and people
song
have
that was
talked about
made
this,
or
how
like
the scoring is so dry in a lot of these movies. But I mean, we saw really good success with Black Panther. Obviously, Ludwig Göransson won an Oscar for that. But you don't really, yeah, they don't really have many more iconic themes as they used to. But I saw something interesting that seems to confirm Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield returning. Is that the one of the songs is called, I want to say, Unite. People are like, who's uniting? Who could be uniting? I wonder. uh,
I mean, it could be anyone. Like that's not great evidence. I thought you were gonna say like there's a song called like Three Spider-Mans are in this movie, and I was gonna be like, oh,
Three Spider-Mans.
okay.
Oh my god, imagine the three Spider-Mans. Guys, here they are. I don't know. There's a song. I can't find it right now, but and apparently it samples a bit from the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man themes.
Okay.
So that is the uniting that seems to be happening.
I'm
Uh,
here for it. Do you think we'll
yeah.
see if we see all the Spider-Men, do you think we'll see their leading ladies or they're just gonna be like
I highly doubt it. I heard
ignore
what
them?
Emma Stone or Kirsten Dunst, one of them was pregnant during the filming of this, so I think that probably says. And also, I mean, Emma Stone's dead. Or Emma Stone's not dead.
Oh, wait. Her
Gwen
character.
Stacy is dead.
When I
Um,
literally forgot that Gwen Stacy has perished.
no,
I'm
no.
sorry.
Emma Stone is not dead. Emma Stone's character is dead, and but Kirsten Dunst has apparently said that she'd be willing to come back. I wonder if this ignites a bigger return to those Sam Raimi films. Like, people are talking about it because there was storyboards already ready up for Spider-Man 4 that Sam Raimi wanted to do, and then it kind of seemed like Sony had lost confidence in
Hmm.
a Spider-Man 4 film, which was essentially going to make up for Spider-Man 3. Sony had kind of lost confidence, and then they decided to move forward with Andrew Garfield as a reboot instead of Spider-Man 4. But the question of whether or not these two are in the films is so funny. If they are in the film, I'm pretty sure that they must have filmed this a while ago, like maybe before COVID, maybe during. But I think originally this was supposed to come out like at another time, I think after Multiverse of Madness. So I wonder if Andrew Garfield was like expecting to be promoting this film Tick Tick Boom that he's in at the same time. Like, imagine you're in this artistic indie movie about the writer of Rent, and it's like your best chance for an Oscar yet, and you're constantly being asked whether or not you'll be like returning to this character from a failed superhero franchise. Like, that must be brutal. I mean, it's also good for both the films. I think speculation about Spider-Man drives interest in him, which drives interest in his film. And since he's interviewing for this, they can bring up No Way Home, drive attention for that. But he's just denying it so hard. And one of the main leaks is literally showing a video of him. And I'm like, how are you? He's like, it's a Photoshop.
I genuinely feel so bad for him. Like I feel like he's always gotten the short end of the stick, of the Spider-Man stick, if you
True.
will. Um
Historically.
but yeah, hopefully all of this personal stress on him will be relieved once the movie comes out. Maybe it'll be invigorated, like who knows. I also don't know what's worse, like if he's actually in the movie and just has to dodge all these questions, or if he's not in the movie and he's just like, why do they keep asking me these questions, you know?
Yeah. If they aren't in this movie, people are going to be angry, man. People
Oh
were
yeah.
angry when they didn't show up in the second trailer. Like,
I didn't even know. Oh my gosh.
I really don't know. Tom Holland did this interview recently with BBC One and Zendaya, and he very earnestly said, "No one believes me, but not in this movie." And Andrew Garfield did say the exact same thing, basically. And so I wonder if that's what they've been like coached to say or something. So we'll
Hmm.
see, we'll see. But if they're not in this movie, people are gonna be like, well, oh well, I guess I guess they told us. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess also for me, something that I'm really nervous about is getting spoiled before reaching the
Oh my
theater. Like,
god, me
even though it's on
too.
Saturday, like that someone's just gonna tweet and just be like, "They're in it, guys! They're in it, and this is what
I
they do."
I don't know how I'm gonna stay off of social media for 3 days. Like,
Yeah, we have to. Like, there's no. I'll open my
I don't
laptop
want to
for
get
work, and
spoiled.
then I'll close it and never open it again. Like, there's there's nothing to do.
I also feel like the entire world wants to see this movie. So if there is something on the internet that says spoiler, I think it'll be kind of relatively easy to avoid.
I mean, fingers crossed.
You just gotta turn half your brain off whenever you're on TikTok, Twitter, or Instagram, so you don't absorb any of the information that you're
Oh yeah, it'll be
reading.
like Tom Hutt, and then I'll just
Oops.
completely shut down.
Swipe. Yeah.
So talking about positive things, I wanted to highlight some other characters I'm so excited to see again, mainly Doctor Strange, Wong, and maybe even Wanda as a Scarlet Witch or Shang-Chi. The sky is really the limit because a collapse within the multiverse would quite literally impact every single hero and person we've ever seen. After all, it has blip level implications. I also heard this fan theory that Wanda will be controlling Doctor Strange in the Spider Man movie, even though it was initially slated to run after the upcoming Doctor Strange film. So who knows if that's even possible storyline wise?
I think it's more likely that she'll be revealed in the post credit scene because I think this is gonna kind of tee up DS2. It's such a long title.
But there have been some insane conversations online about what the future of the MCU may hold with these new, incredibly powerful superheroes at the forefront of the narrative.
Yeah, I've heard some crazy fan theories. I mean, everyone has on TikTok mostly.
Oh,
Like
yeah, of course.
people want to see Jake Johnson as live action Peter B. Parker, which would be actually I think that would be pretty good. But then that kind of brings up complicated things with like Haley Steinfeld, Catherine Hahn, Mahershala Ali, Brian Tyree Henry. Like they all play live action characters in the MCU. So how do you like deal with that?
Yeah, I think it would have to be impossible. Also, I don't know if you watch New Girl, but I think I would just see him on screen and be like, "Is that Nick Miller?" like the whole time. So
Yeah.
hopefully they sorry, Jake Johnson. Hopefully he's not in the movie.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. I would love to see Jake Johnson play a superhero though. That'd be kind of cool. Kind of similar to Paul Rudd.
Yeah, I feel like he'd have to play someone kind of like Shazam, right?
Yeah,
He's
something kind of funny. Yeah, like Zachary Levi. Yeah, yeah. But one thing I really liked was, but it's probably just not going to happen, as Tom Holland kind of fan casted Timothy Chalamet as Harry Osborn in the next couple movies, which could be awesome. I don't see a high likelihood of that happening though, just based off Timothy Chalamet's whole thing.
I mean, honestly, neither do I. Exactly like you said, it doesn't really seem like his style. And also, they greenlit upcoming Dune sequels, so
Yeah,
he might be busy for the next
busy. Oh, he's
decade,
always
half
busy.
decade. We
Yeah,
have no idea, right?
yeah.
So only time will tell, I guess.
I had this theory before Tom Holland said it. So Tom Holland
Okay.
stole my theory.
How dare he?
I thought Timothy Chalamet. I was like thinking about this when he first started getting famous. I was like, who could he play in the MCU? Like all these up and coming actors, they get cast in the MCU. Who's he gonna play? And I was like, Harry Osborn, that'd be pretty good. That'd be a pretty good one. And then Tom Holland said it, and now he gets all the credit for it.
Can't believe he just took that thought right out of your brain and just stole
Yeah,
it.
he's like a yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think based on the work that I've seen that Timothy Chalamet has done in the past, it's like really hard for me to imagine him in the MCU because it doesn't really seem like his style. Also, I don't know, he has like bone structure of the gods. So if he was gonna be in the MCU, I feel like he would have been in Eternals, like as the character
True.
Harry Styles played, or like some
That would be
sort. Well,
cool.
maybe they want him for a bigger role than that, but something that's more like a it's all otherworldly. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But
He would
he
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
looks
something more like cosmic.
like a 17th
Yeah.
century.
Yeah,
I don't know.
he doesn't look like Tom Holland. Like I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Like Tom Holland is the everyman.
Yeah, I don't know if you could put him in those Tom Holland movies and he would like work. He definitely is a talented actor. I think that he could probably swing it if he did get
Mhm.
cast in that kind of role. But I think if he ever plays anyone in the MCU, it's almost definitely going to be a villain because that's just like the caliber of actors that they tend to get for villains. I mean, there's a plethora of Marvel characters and Marvel villains. There's always gonna be
Oh yeah.
something for Timothy Chalamet. I think like he would get his pick if he did decide he wanted to do it. I wonder what the reasoning would be because I don't think he has a particular interest in joining the MCU based on his career path right now and
I mean,
how,
probably at this point. Like
especially
he
yeah, with
was
Dune now in the works. He's just so in demand right now. Also like he's young, like he could easily enter the MCU at any point. But I think Harry Osborn really really cool.
That's so true. That is such a good point. And I know like Marvel, especially like I've seen some documentaries about how they run their kind of company.
Mhm.
They will wait. Like
Yeah.
they'll have an actor that they think is perfect and they just won't find the role for them and they're just like, "All right, we're going to wait until we're ready to introduce this person into the MCU." So,
Mhm.
I guess we'll see. I feel like it might be overkill cuz like Zendaya and him were in Dune together, even though she was only in it for 7 minutes apparently.
Yeah.
I guess it's so impossible to know what's in store for the future.
Mhm.
Like only time will tell.
Generally I think the box office kind of aspects of Dune and Spider-Man No Way Home, both coming out this year, both heavily quote unquote featuring Zendaya. Let's say the marketing of Dune heavily features Zendaya.
Yeah, more than the film itself.
Zendaya and a white guy. Those are basically these
A
two.
young white guy with a T name,
Yeah,
Tim and
T
Tom.
name,
Like,
basically, in a big ass $1 billion movie. These films feel like very much parallels to each other, but also like diametrically opposed to each other. And it's interesting because obviously Dune came out on HBO Max at the same time. Dune is also a 2.5 hour long film about space politics. Spider-Man Home No Way Home is shaping up to be literally the most exciting superhero movie of all time. So
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
completely different audiences.
clearly different, yeah, things. But the idea of like Tom Holland and Zendaya and Timothy Chalamet being able to like pull in audiences, it's like it's not just because of themselves. Clearly, like because Dune didn't pull, but this one clearly is. So maybe that's kind of an insight for Timothy Chalamet. I mean, it's not like he's struggling. It's not like he's struggling to be well known. Like, but maybe this will kind of open the eyes a little bit to how I don't know, just something that like people are actually going out to theaters to see this film. Like I had talked about this with you before, but like Spider-Man is a character I think people passively just are a fan of. When we were getting ready for this episode, I was thinking about it and I was like, I have Spider-Man stuff like all over my room, but like I don't really feel like I like Spider-Man that much. And I was like, well, Spider-Man's just everywhere. Like if you like comic books, you like superheroes, you'll like Spider-Man. And
Yeah,
there's
and
just
he's just a very recognizable character
yeah,
and he's
and he's
absolutely everywhere.
universally relatable, I think, which is
Mhm.
something they talk about a lot in the Into the Spider-Verse movie. So yeah, I am very excited to see what is gonna happen next with just Spider-Man in general. A very interesting character. I wonder, you talked about this before, but I wonder if there's going to be some severe burnout from this character and people are gonna
Mhm.
have reached their threshold with it.
Hopefully not anytime soon because
Yeah.
we're the content is coming whether we want it or
Yeah.
not. But I think we want it.
Tom Holland was like, I don't know if I want to be Spider Man again. And then the next day was like, I'm going to be Spider Man for the next 10 years.
He's actually hilarious. Like
Yeah.
that is something that would happen to him.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. Please check out the films we discussed if you haven't and form your own opinions. You can watch Spider Man No Way Home in theaters starting December 17th.
We would also love to hear your thoughts on anything and everything Spider Man. Join the conversation by heading over to our YouTube, The Grain, or our Instagram at thegrain.ig. We hope to see you there.